Hello, this is Nico, and we have a 96 911 here, 993 model. This is the last year of the air-cooled car. The 1998 is the last year. This is the last body style of the air-cooled engine. And we're gonna pop the rear engine lid here. And the trunk, the struts don't stay up, but you've got the 911 engine fan right here. That's the famous air-cooled fan right there. That's what gives these cars the beautiful noise that they make. So this car is overall generally in good shape. We're gonna go on a test drive right now and see how the car shifts, upshifts, downshifts, accelerates, idles, all that. And we'll really kind of put this car through its paces to see if it's a car that I can sell to the public, that I feel comfortable selling to the public or not. All right, so we are now inside the car, and there's a couple things. So these cars all have the 993 models, especially the 96, 97, and 98 models. If the car sits for a minute or two, it automatically sets the alarm, which means you can't crank the car over. So you have to, if the car's unlocked and you do a walk around the car and then you try to get in and start it, the car won't start. So you have to arm the car and then disarm the car. And that's just funky Porsche 993 stuff. Every single one's like that, except for the 95 models. The 95 models don't have that. So a couple things, like this speaker, this thing has an aftermarket radio. You can see this Alpine head unit down here. It has an aftermarket speaker added in here, and it's kind of hanging down. So, and this is kind of typical. They've got a whole bunch of hot glue in here. Very standard of like the aftermarket speaker guys to do this. Certainly it's not Porsche. Can we make it work? Yeah, probably. We're gonna have to take that apart and kind of get that reinstalled. It probably goes like so, yeah, so the speaker's facing you. And this is where we also check to make sure that all the turn signals work. So what we want to make sure of right now is that the clutch doesn't chatter. So like the whole chassis doesn't chatter while you're letting off the clutch and rolling away from a stop. We don't want to have any chattering issues. And this car feels pretty smooth, so that's nice. And then I shift these things, between, when I'm driving these cars, between 2,500 and 3,000 RPM. I only blast it up to like, between 5,000 and 6,000 RPM once. I need to make sure that it can do it without any noise. We want to make sure that the car can go to that RPM without having any issues. Second gear feels very nice. It shifts into second nicely. And we're like right at 3,000 RPM, so we can shift it and check the synchro of third gear right now. And it went right into third gear without having any problems. We also have the AC on. The AC is cold in this car. In the 993s, that's kind of when Porsche figured out how to air condition a car. It's really the only air-cooled car that has good AC from the factory. The 964 also had good AC, but the 993 was, I think, a better AC system. So we're shifting it, making sure that all the synchros are good. Going up right now. That's good. Fourth gear feels nice. So this car does have a sunroof. I don't recommend anybody to ever use the sunroof because when they break, they're kind of difficult. But when I open the sunroof, I kind of give it just a couple of, I only open it a little bit at a time because if I hear any binding or popping, or if I hear the motor of the sunroof kind of wind down and start to grunt real slow, I stop. This one actually works pretty nice, so that's good. That one, it went up, and then the question is, does it close? It closes. It works nicely on this car. Okay, never to be used again. You also want to make sure that all the gauges work. So on these cars, they have 3 oil level or oil gauges. The gauge over here is oil level. This car is a dry sump oil system. It's in the red you see right now, right? But you don't want to, you can't check it while the car's moving. It has to be, the engine has to be hot at idle on level surface. That's the only time you want to look at this gauge. This gauge right here is the oil temperature. So when we say hot, we want it to that first 1/3 marker. So you can see the orange needle is almost to that 1/3 right there. And when the oil gets to that point, then we can use this gauge. When the oil's not there yet, you don't want to totally rely on that gauge. And then the oil pressure to the right of that, that's just how much pressure the system has. So when we were just cruising at 22,000 RPM, it was at 5 bar. While when the car's idling, it's at about 2 bar. That's nice. So that's good oil pressure. Also, we just want to make sure that the tachometer works. The tachometer sweeps up and down nicely. The speedometer over here works. The question is, does the trip meter work? That's a very common, the odometer on these cars is a very common failure point. I'm just going to reset it. It says 177.2 right now, and it looks like the odometer works fine. It's going up in a tenth of a mile increment, so that's good. Pulling to Cardiff State Beach here. The surf is nice. Lots of people surfing right now. This is an 18-inch turbo twist wheel. So you can see why they call it a turbo twist. The spokes are actually twisted. And also, something very important and technical about a turbo twist is that it has hollow spokes. And so why is that important? A standard valve stem will not work in a turbo twist. If we look down here at the seating surface for a turbo twist wheel, we can see how deep that seat is. It's actually got like a seat on the bottom and a seat on the top. And then there's actually like a hollow rib inside here, all the way 360 degrees around the rim right here. So here's a standard valve stem, fits 99.9% of cars in North America. So the seat is only about 1/8 to 3/8 of an inch deep on every single car in America. Well, the seat on this is probably about 3/4 of an inch to an inch. So what you need is you need a valve stem that looks like this. Here's actually the factory part number right here. So this comes with everything. It comes with the valve, the stem, the core inside, the cap, the nut that holds it all down, a washer, and another O-ring. So what we're gonna do is we are gonna install this through the bottom. So this is just a custom Porsche 911 turbo valve stem. This is going to go in through the bottom right here. Then we're going to get the O-ring and nut that hold it all down and washer. Then the O-ring goes on just like that. And the washer, you're going to make sure you install the washer correctly. There's like an inner and an outer, so it kind of, you can see how there's a dome upward right there. So that's just going to capture the top of that O-ring. So it's going to mount just like this, right in there like that. Then we're gonna put the nut right on top of it. And then we're gonna spin it down, and that's it. The idea here today is we wanna make sure that you don't try, or someone at a tire shop does not try and attempt to install the standard valve stem in a Porsche turbo twist wheel. It will not work, and it is dangerous. And this is also going to get N-rated Porsche PS2 tires. We are looking at the bottom of this 993 that we just test drove. So now what we have on the car now is we have brand new rear brake pads and rotors on the back of the car. You can see they're nice and brand new. They're not even broken in yet. We have a set of Porsche, or of Michelin Pilot Sport 4S's on it. I had a set of PS2s mounted and balanced on these turbo twist wheels. But I ended up removing all of them because they did not road force balance properly, and they were going to give the car a horrible shake. I couldn't get the Porsche, the PS2 N3s down underneath like 50 or 60 pounds of road force, which is way too much. So then from my vendor, I returned all those, and I got Michelin Pilot Sport 4Ss, which are an excellent tire. They just don't have the N spec on them. But with that being said, these averaged out, the lowest one was about 5 pounds of road force, which is an amazing number. The highest one was 14 pounds of road force, which is an average number. What that means to you as the driver is you're not gonna feel the car shake. Anything over about 26 to 30 pounds of road force, the car's gonna shake. You're not gonna like it. Brand new 4Ss. I think Michelin just has a bad run of PS2s and 3s in this size. So 265 rear, 225 front. We'll start here with the engine. The engine on this car is nice and dry. Some really, really minor seepage over here. Some really, really minor seepage over here from the timing cover area. The heads have already been removed from this car and a valve job has been done. So there's nothing that leaks onto the ground from this car. That's really big and good news. The transmission is also nice and dry. Very nice transmission. The 6-speed stick shift. If we come back and look at all the arms and the shocks and the suspension, everything looks good. All the CV joints are good. None of the shocks are leaking. I mean, if we travel up along the car, so what we're looking for in the center of the car, there's not a lot of stuff to see. So what we're looking for is any large dents from like bottoming out or hitting a curb or driving over a curb or anything. There's no large dents or scrapes to speak of. Also, there's no road rot. So like, was the car ever driven on a salty road? And you can tell like where the tire flings up into this area. Is this all factory and clean? Yes, this is all factory and clean right there. So that's very good. Same thing with this side. It's all factory and clean. There's no salt rot or anything else. Same thing with this side of the car. So this whole entire under panel on this side is nice, good, clean, not scraped, scratched, or anything like that. If we're coming to the front now, we've got the front suspension. It looks good. Shocks aren't leaking. The car drives nice. So yeah, no, this car is good to go. We've removed all the encapsulation panels in the back so you can view the transmission and the engine easily. So I'll go ahead and reinstall those now. What we're now gonna do is we're gonna go around the car with a paint meter. So what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna go around the car with a alcometer. It is a gauge that measures mils or millionths of an inch. What this device is gonna do is it's just going to measure the thickness of the paint. So paint is non-magnetic, right? But the steel fender underneath here is magnetic. So 6.5 millionths of an inch is the distance between the steel fender and the top of the paint. So factory paint is somewhere between on basically every car, is somewhere between 4 and 6 millionths of an inch thick. This one's a little bit thick on this side, so I just go all the way around the car. So it's got 6.5 there, 6 there, 6.5 there, 4 there, 4. And what I'm trying to do here, so I'm trying to get the top of the fender, and then also on cars, what happens is people will accidentally brush up against the side of a pole, right? And what'll happen is they'll spot paint it down here, so then your paint meter won't pick anything up here. So you want to get down here on the side, 4. You want to get down here low, 5, 4.5, 4.5. You also want to do the roof, 4, and 4. You want to get the difference between this upper panel and this panel, because if something was ever replaced, let's say that they replaced this quarter panel at one point, and they basically cut the panel out of the car, and then they weld in a new panel. When they paint it, they blend it basically right here in this area on every single car. So right in this pillar area is where they'll blend. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you get a reading there, which is the lower side of the top of the quarter. And then you want to get a reading on the upper part of the quarter. And they just have to be close, right? So they're 4, 4, over here is 3.5. So it's all good and the same. We got 4 up here. On the sunroof is 4.5, middle of the roof is 5, front of the roof is 5, and the right front is 5. Door. I can't do the mirror because it's a plastic mirror, so it doesn't have any magnetic property. I can't do bumpers on this car or the mirror. So bumpers and mirrors are off limits. 4.5, 4, 4.5, go low here. Make sure 4.5, 5.5. Let's go lower. 5. So as long as it goes, 4, 5.5, 5, you're fine. If it goes 4, 5.5, 9, then you could almost be, I could guarantee at that point that the bottom was painted and it was faded up into here. 6 here, a non-reading there. So see down here, there's no reading. I got 9 there. I got 7.5 there, 7.5, 11.5, 16. You can see I'm only advancing down the hood now like a half an inch at a time, right? 17, 21. This thing can only read about 24 mils, and then that's it, it's done. After that, okay, so 21, 20. Okay, so I could tell you right now that this section right here, basically this company is saying after 20 mils, you have Bondo. So there's probably some filler at some point. Something was crunched right here, and then somebody put some filler in right there. And look and see if we can't find some filler on the bottom of this edge right here. So if we look down here, okay, so you can't really see it because it's got a reinforcement that's covering the area of this spot, right? So I've got no reading, but I got a reading up here of 7.5. And then I've got 12, 17, 17. So right here has some light Bondo. Underneath here all looks factory. It's not all smashed in or anything. This isn't all repaired. So it could just be a very light amount of Bondo, basically more than 20 millionths of an inch thick, which is a very light Bondo coating. So I think the hood on this car has been repainted. And then there's, as far as the rest of the body, this fender is slightly discolored, as well it has a scratch. Everything else on this car is pretty nice. This car is dialed in and ready for a drive.